Bianca.
And I'm SJ.
And this is ScreenGab, and today we are covering Guardians of the Galaxy
Volume 2.
Amazing. Cool. So what did you think?
I mean, I enjoyed it.
I didn't like it.
I think it's very fun, but kind of forgettable. There are only a couple moments that stand out to me now, a week or so after having seen it. I had to sort of struggle to think about, like, oh yeah, that happened and that happened. And there was sort of a general plot. One of my favorite moments was actually not really anything to do with the plot. It was just a character moment when Mantis. Okay, spoiler. This is a spoiler podcast. I have to say it every time. Mantis is this new character who's an empath, and she can feel someone's feelings if she touches them. So Drax is like a really stoic character, but he's talking about his daughter who is like dead. His whole family is dead, but he's got like a peaceful but pretty stoic expression. And Mantis like touches his arm, and then she starts like weeping. And I just thought like it was just a really like kind of beautiful way to show both of their characterizations, and like he was still the way that he is, but it was like expressing to the audience like he does feel things. He doesn't express them that way, the way that other people do for whatever reason, but he does have like a rich inner emotional life, and I liked it, but it has nothing to do with the story in any way.
Yeah, I think they really seem to like refine this, like he just does not experience things the way most other beings in this movie do. And I don't think she does either.
But part of that might be because she's so isolated. We don't know how
I thought it was because she was an empath. I don't know.
Well, it could be too. It's hard to say.
They're both very different from the majority of characters, and they're different from each other.
The other thing I really liked was Gamora and Nebula, their whole little arc. So they're like sisters, but they're like competitive and adversaries, but then they like try to kill each other, but then they love each other, and they have a what is that word? Kind of redemptive reunification moment.
Mm-hmm. At first I thought I didn't like that. There was more of their relationship to show. Mm-hmm. And then I realized I did, but there was just so much going on in this movie that I couldn't like it.
Yeah. There's tons of, like, I guess, subplots. I mean...
Mm-hmm. And they're all, it's all important.
And I liked it all, but we were discussing just before we started recording, like, maybe this would have been better as, like, a TV show where you had more time to actually develop all these characters and story arcs, because feels like they're cramming a lot in. My initial impression was that it wasn't really a movie so much as like a collection of scenes that were all like individually enjoyable, but it didn't really feel like I was watching like a coherent like start to finish story. It was like, here's a bunch of scenes that you will like, and they're all in a row for no reason.
Yeah, I felt like what tied it together was Ego, now that I'm thinking about it. Like they would just be off, with these other characters, and then we'd go back to Ego on his planet, and I was like, oh yeah.
I think that if you like sat down and thought about it, you could track like, okay, this happened and then this, and because of that, but that's not how it appeared when I was just watching it or just finishing. Like, okay, there was a lot of stuff that happened that didn't seem related to an overall story. I mean, another enjoyable element was Toddler Groot.
I loved that bit when they were like, should we kill him? And he's like, he's way too adorable to kill. But then they end up just like abusing him, which is awful.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I did not like that, especially
because... It really
because...
made me feel awful. That guy stomped on him, and I was like, what movie am I watching?
And then, this was honestly one of the most disturbing parts for me related to that. Later, when they're like breaking out of that, Groot like goes after the guy that stomped on him. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Rah!" And he kills him. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not sure that I want to be cheering for like a toddler murdering someone just because, yes, like, well, it was revenge. Well, he was treated horribly. Like, okay, but like, I'm literally watching someone who has very low impulse control because they're a toddler being like, I am angry and upset and I'm going to lash out and kill someone. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there were so many people that got killed throughout the whole movie. Yeah. Like, even in that scene, they kill.
The whole part where it's like the very end of the mutiny, not really a mutiny anymore, and Yondu is like killing everyone that was on the ship. And I feel like, that sort of violence is so really common in like American movies, at least that I'm familiar with, but it just did not work. Like I feel like when it works, you don't really think about, oh, that probably just caused like hundreds of people to die or thousands of people to die, depending on the movie. And this one I was just kind of like,
Well, because they kept showing this little arrow thing going through all these individual bodies, and the whole thing was set to this like upbeat, like
it was kind of weird
pop song, bodies flying through the air, ha ha ha.
It did not work. cannot quite say why, but it definitely did not work. At least not for me.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I think the baby, he's not baby, he's a toddler. Toddler Groot.
They call him Baby Groot.
I know, but he's a toddler. He's a baby at the end of the last one when he was in a little potted plant still. And now he's walking around. Anyway,
cute.
He's so cute, so innocent, and so I think that's what made it more disturbing for me, that this cute little innocent, lovable creature is now killing people, and we're supposed to cheer. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah. No, that was a thing.
This isn't the only way to resolve conflict, you guys.
Yay! That was the thing though that bothered me. Like, I felt like no one treated him like a baby or a toddler until very near the end of the film when someone, I think it's Gamora, is holding him. And I was just like, what? Why is it? Like, I think about how much...
they tell him to, like, get out of the way or something, but...
Yeah, but it's not like something...
They're not nurturing.
Yeah. And I feel like they're trying to milk that he's a baby, so you'd think that they would do that. I mean, obviously it's all, like, fictional and, like, you know, aliens and ish, but, like, you would think they would do that anyway. That's something that kind of concerns me, because I think about how much Peter's childhood, I mean, he just thinks about it and it bothers him. Like, he didn't get to experience his entire childhood with his mom, and he didn't meet his dad until he was an adult. And you would just think that that alone would make him be more, like, protective of Groot.
Yeah, and that was, like, an explicit theme in this one that Gamora kept telling him, like, well, I thought, you know, that we were your family, and you already had your family with us, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh, we're just going to forget about that, conveniently, until the crucial moment when I have to use my heart to save my friends.
I felt like the relationship between Yondu and Peter was completely fabricated, and it was obvious. I suppose you could argue that Peter's looking for his dad, and he finds his dad, but it's not who he wants him to be. And then it's like, oh, we want him to have something. But it's just like, you're like rewriting what happened in the last movie. Yondu was abusive. He was totally neglectful, and he just used Peter. And now they're trying, especially in like the credit scenes, make it like there's even this line where Peter's like, now I understand why Yondu always da-da-da-da. When it's like Groot, but now he's like teenager Groot. I mean, I don't think that they're telling people who were abused to just blow off what happened to them. Like, I don't think there's nefarious intentions in them portraying these relationships that way. But it comes off that way, and it's really weird. And
I mean, it does make sense that, like, he had a particular perception in the first movie that now that he has a little more time and experience in his life, he has a little different perception and understanding of his childhood. But, like, yeah, it doesn't seem like they wrote the first one with this second one storyline in mind. So it's just sort of like, by the way.
Yeah. From what I saw in the first movie, it seemed like he was, like, abused by him and used by him. And so even if he, like, you know, just being distanced from it for a while as an adult, like, even if he just feels differently about it, it definitely seemed like that still was what happened to him.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just because he didn't take him to Ego doesn't mean that he was totally benevolent. Like, oh, I didn't take you to certain death, but also I may not have been the best parent or guardian.
I was totally neglectful and used you for my own ends.
Yeah, like, I mean, those things can both be true.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be true that he, like, had enough compassion and care for him that he didn't want to kill him, but at the same time, or that he wasn't, you know, always looking out for his best interests or anything.
When we see all the skeletons of Ego's other children, it seems like he really wasn't that well-intentioned the great majority of the time, because that was, like, a mountain of children.
Yeah.
Or, like, at least skeletons. Maybe they weren't children by the time he got them to Ego,
maybe he had other people burying.
I would assume so. That was a lot of skeletons. That was a lot of skeletons. That was the thing. Before I was reading the Wikipedia, because I cheated, I'm sorry. I didn't understand why Ego needed to plant that thing on each planet and also procreate with somebody on the planet.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense to me. But then, on Wikipedia...
Okay, yeah, what's Wikipedia's knowledge?
I don't think it's, like, sourced right after that sentence, but it's there, so it has to be true. It says that to activate that plant somehow, or, like, go back to each planet, and you need 2 Celestials to do that. But my thing is, like, he went around having so many kids, like, he must have thought that, like, none of them would be able to do it if he was having that many kids. And he was just kind of, like, hoping one of, like, what would literally look like thousands of skeletons, one of thousands would, like, pan out. Like, it was just weird. It seemed excessive, and it needed to be cut off or cut out. Like, it just didn't really make sense.
I guess I didn't really think he was like, oh, I don't know which one. I mean, I guess it seemed like he was just, like, approaching it like, I'll just do as many as possible. Like, I don't think he realized from the beginning that only one would be able to do it. And, you know, if you're, like, designing a science experiment and you're, like, a grade schooler and you're like, well, I put one bean in the cupboard in the dark and one in the hair, and you just do as many as possible and, you know, whatever. I don't know.
I just thought it was weird.
The whole thing with Ego that seemed weird to me was, like, it's such, like, huge stakes. And I guess, like, the first one is too, and okay, they're literally called Guardians of the Galaxy, so I guess they have to literally save the whole galaxy every time, but it was just like, this seems like a really big deal. I found my dad! He's a celestial being! I'm half a celestial being!
Yeah,
he's gonna destroy the entire universe! I have to stop it, and now I have no powers. Like, this all seemed like major, like, narrative-changing things that, again, maybe it would be more enjoyable if we had more installments to sort of digest each of these and more explore them a little more. Like, oh, I have these powers and I can control this light stuff for like 20 minutes and then it's gone for the rest of my life because I have to, you know, like...
Yeah. And he seemed pretty jazzed about it too. He was like, I'm gonna make some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so, I mean, it's not like it meant nothing to him for him to only have it for 20 minutes.
But they just, as a story, like, it's not as satisfying to me that everything skipped so quickly and now, like, that whole storyline is done, and now what are they going to do next? Like, I guess the whole Thanos thing with them merging with Avengers, but it's just like, okay, these movies are, every Marvel movie is like, we gotta one-up ourselves, we gotta make it bigger stakes and grander, and everything always has to be bigger. I'm like, well, personally, I don't think everything always has to be bigger, but sometimes we could have some lower stakes. Like, I feel like I would enjoy a movie about the Guardians doing these other missions like what they're doing at the very beginning, even though it goes horribly wrong. But let me see more of those and their dynamics and their day-to-day type of stuff.
You could reinforce their family status by having those side adventures. Like, if we see something like that and then see Peter having to choose between being a demigod and just do stuff with his dad and his family that he's made, like, that would make much more sense.
But also you would need more time than they... It's just, it felt like a lot, like a giant story that they tried to cram into 2.5 hours, which is a long time, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. You don't sit there thinking, I hate this. You're, like, laughing the whole time, but it's just not as good of a story, because it's not really much of a story. It's a lot of scenes and things thrown together.
Can I talk about some of the stuff I liked? Okay. I thought the very beginning was hilarious, because it was just so cheeky. They're, like, driving through that field and everything's just, like, perfectly lit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Ego and Peter's mom are so happy. It's just, like, like, at first I was like, this is so cheesy. And I was like, oh, this is definitely on purpose. Like, this is supposed to be funny. I also noticed, I said, can I go over some stuff I liked? And immediately, at the very beginning, I heard someone else talk about this, too. They said at the movie theater they were at, and they're in L.A., the sound at the beginning, like, it seemed to be very quiet. And I noticed that here, too. And
I didn't notice.
I don't know. So I thought, I couldn't tell if was that a choice and it was actually just quiet, or did we both just happen to go to theaters that didn't know what they were doing so far as sound? Like, I don't know. But I thought that was weird. But
can I say something about Peter's mother?
Yes.
That was not a Missouri accent, okay? We're recording this like an hour west of the Missouri state line, and that is not what people sound like in Missouri, okay? Maybe she wasn't originally from Missouri, or maybe Hollywood thinks, Missouri, that's like a southern state.
Yeah.
But it was annoying to me.
No, I feel like there's kind of this...
People in Missouri sound like this. Like me. In Kansas.
I feel like there's this...
I mean, there's variety, of course, but...
I feel like there's this, quote, country accent that just kind of gets, like, splayed onto lots of people. But there's, like you're saying, there's this variety of accents. And
also, I don't even think that's what she sounds like in the first movie when she's, like, dying. She's like, Peter, I have a gift for you.
Maybe they were trying to
she wasn't like,
emphasize her...
I'm dying. I'm from Missouri.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I like the new friendship between Drax and Mantis. Drax is just so honest. He's a little too honest. But also biased. Like, I love when he tells her that she's ugly or that she's not beautiful. And it's, like, clearly, like, she looks humanish. But, like, I mean, I thought she was very pretty. But I suppose that's a subjective thing. But I like how it's just in his nature to be like, you're ugly. And not think anything of it. And, like... I don't know. And then she just took it so seriously. She was like, oh, well, I guess I know that now. So just, like, taking it as, like, the honest truth and something that everyone should think. And then Gamora's like, oh, my God, you're not ugly. He's like, yes, she is. And she just, like, I don't know. It was silly.
I like that he said that for two reasons. One, what you said, that he's just very blunt and that's just his character. But also because, like, it's kind of refreshing you know, there's so many stories about like space and different species, and somehow it's always like Earth, you know, westernized ideals of beauty that are like universal in all these stories.
No, everyone, all of the important characters or the complex characters are just humanoid.
Yeah.
Like you see at the end of or near the end of the movie, all of the people that Ego procreated with are just like vaguely humanoid, and it's like, how do you know that across all these different planets all over the universe that those are the people you need to be procreating with, such that you can...
Well, speaking of, when he's like, and then I created myself into like a being, and I just picked the form that I thought was like most likely, and it was a white male, and like human, you know, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, it makes more sense that you would like travel to other planets and then be like, oh, let me adopt this form.
Yeah.
Let me adopt that form.
Yeah. I loved how,
ridiculous.
Regardless of where he was, though, it was always cool for him to be wearing that red leather jacket. Yeah. That was the funniest thing. Like, and I was talking to some other people, and they were like, oh, well, maybe he was just trying to, like, you know, they were just simplifying it. And I was like, no, I really think he went to all these planets, and every single planet was like, you know what's cool? A red leather jacket.
Anyway, so that's the other thing I like about Drax saying that, is like, it makes sense that not every species would find the same types of things attractive, and it's nice to have an acknowledgement of that, even though it's sort of supposed to be a funny joke, but it's like, yeah, obviously.
What did you think of the vision pods, or what do you want to call that, on Ego's planet? He's like giving him the history, and instead of them just like, you know,
flashback,
Ego's like narrating, it's just like these like vision pods, or I don't know what they're called.
I don't know. I guess they're just trying to help us track the story, but by that point I was so meh.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. I do have to say, like, it was pretty much not immediately when we get to Ego's planet, but a little after. That's when the movie just kind of ended for me. Like, I felt like the first third or the first half was pretty, like, solid and, like, watchable, and then it just gets kind of messy, and that was a big part of why I didn't like it.
Yeah, but when it got to, I don't remember at what exact point, but like I remember being like, well, obviously Peter Quill is gonna have to fight against his dad, and obviously he's gonna have to use his heart, because otherwise why would Vondu say, well, when I'm whistling with that arrow, I don't use my head, I use my heart. I'm like, well, that's gonna come back, you know. So like when it did, I was just like, well, yeah, finally, let's get on with it, and not like, oh, I'm so moved. Although the theater, I mean, we watched it opening weekend, and it was, you know, a sold out theater, and when Ego's like, it was the hardest thing I did, put that tumor in your mom or whatever.
Yeah.
The audience was like, oh, horrified, like audibly gasping, and then like 2 seconds later, they're all laughing hysterically when Quill's like, you shouldn't have killed my mom and squished my Walkman. You know, I don't know. I just was annoyed with both of those lines because they were so clunky. Yes, we know this, like, just, I don't know. It just wasn't good storytelling. Obviously this is gonna happen. Okay, it finally happened. Why are all these people laughing hysterically? It's not that funny. I'm a snob.
I didn't think it was that funny either.
But then, I mean, in the middle of their battle, like, I did think it was hilarious that he turned himself into a giant Pac-Man.
Is very true to himself. Is like, yes, that is exactly what he would do. Good job.
I definitely think if I rewatched it, I mean, I did like the Gamora Nebula stuff, but like that's what I want to rewatch it for, is their arc, and then the Drax Mantis stuff, and Toddler Groot, because he's cute, except when he's murdering people. I mean, honestly, like, it feels so manipulative. Like, I'm like, I know that they're gonna make me laugh with this Toddler Groot, and they use him too much, but at the same time, like, give me more Toddler Groot. I love it.
I did feel like most of the violence in this movie was really excessive and kind of made me uncomfortable. But the one time I liked it was when Gamora and Nebula are fighting on Ego's planet, and they're just they're shooting at each other. Nebula's using like that entire aircraft to just try and crush Gamora, and neither of them die, but I think that it made much more sense because you could see how readily defensive and angry, like readily defensive Gamora is, and how angry, and not like pointlessly, like not unfounded, just very, very angry that Nebula is. And I felt like it was just reflective of what they both felt. And so it seemed appropriate. And neither of them died, so I could totally dig it.
I mean, to me, it sort of seemed like what I imagine maybe their sparring was like when they were growing up.
I didn't even think about
because they had so many like modifications anyway. They were like tougher than the
also,
average.
can I just say, Thanos is a dick and an awful dad, and he was awful when Nebula is describing the way he would make them fight, and how every time Nebula lost, it just meant she was gonna have another piece of machinery added onto her body, another part of her body taken off. Yeah. I mean, that's awful. Like, he clearly, I mean, dad is not the right word for him, I guess is all I'm saying.
Interesting thing from this movie, I appreciated learning how Bondu's whistle brain implant thing worked. Because, like, I thought that maybe he was just born with it. Yeah. I didn't know what species he was. Apparently it's just a body modification, and you can just, like, order a prototype, and it's called a fin, and I don't know, because I thought that he, like, died when Nebula shot that. I thought that too, like, when all of a sudden he was, like, he's, like, sitting in a chair, and I'm like, oh, is he dead? And they put his body in the chair, and then it was just like, nope, he's alive, and he has an extra fin that he can just stick a new one on top of his skull. Yeah, which was super convenient, and happened to be, like, right by Taserface's, like, in his night table. I guess it was, like, a drawer set or, like, a file or something, but still, like, nobody knew that was there. It was very convenient for the plot. Okay, also a note on the violence, like, yes, it's excessive, and is it, like, ironic or something that this one planet that they're at the beginning that is, you know, all, like, they're all, like, biologically engineered to be so great, like, that when their fleet is out, like, there's no, like, human loss, because they're just, like, remotely piloting. I was like, this is a great idea. Why isn't everyone doing this? This sounds... No, that was exactly what I thought when I was watching this. When I first saw the game Battleship, I was like, how come all wars aren't fought like this? How come, like, reps from, like, each country don't just get together and, like, battleship this out? Like, but I loved that about, I guess they're the sovereign race, those, like, gold people. Yeah. That it's, like, they just use droids, and so it almost has this video game effect of that it's not even, like, they're really, like, saving... I mean, they're losing, you know, like, protecting themselves. Their equipment or something, but it's just... but they're all still alive, and I was like, oh, that's great. Like, even, like, you know, the other people who have already, their droids have been taken out, they're crowding around other people and cheering them on like they're in an arcade somewhere. I feel like there's probably some people that watched this movie and would hear us say this and be like, that's silly, you're soft, this is the future liberals want, man. Like, yeah, because people don't die, and that sounds great to me. What is your problem? I will gladly that totally sounds great to me too. Can you imagine if that's like if video games are just leading up to that? Well, isn't that what I mean? The real world is. I mean, we have drone strikes already, like, which is not a great thing, but it would be cool if it was just like not to other people. It was just like, we're gonna take out your drone with our drone. Whoever is left standing or droning wins. Also, I like this better than, like, the Ender's Game version where they think they're playing a game, but really there are real people dying. That's true. I didn't think about that. Okay, I want to talk about the Ravagers, and what I want to say is I felt like they were entirely unnecessary. They could have just not been in this film and it would have been fine. I think the cool fireworks at the end when they come and it's like they're, like, accepting Yondu as one of them. Yeah, that was the only reason for them to be there. It was like this good end to his arc, which I kind of... I know you're supposed to be like, oh, he made this sacrifice, he's such a good guy. But yeah, I feel like maybe it wasn't that earned. Like, I feel very ambivalent about it. Like, I did like that ending. It was like, oh, they all came and he was one of them, and he had a sacrificial ending, so it was good. But at the same time, I don't know. I can accept that Yondu is in this one, but I feel like the struggle, the tug of Peter between being with his biological dad, who is a celestial, who is a god with a lowercase g, and being with this family that he's made, like, that would be enough. Yeah. You know, I don't understand why Yondu was in this. Like, I feel like they could have... I mean, I'm not saying it, would be as simple as, like, flick of the wrist, but I feel like I'm just surprised that they didn't try and emphasize that within Peter that way. Yeah, it was, again, like, too much. Like, if we had, like, 10 or 13 episodes to go through all this, maybe that would be okay to be that complicated, but, like, there's so much emotional trauma that happens to Peter Quill in just this movie because he finds his long-lost dad, and he's so ecstatic, and then he's really let down because it's not what he thought he was, and then he kills him in the span of, like, 20 minutes and realizes, like, oh, this other guy is really maybe more of my dad, but also he's dead now too. Like, he loses both father figures within minutes, and that's a lot to process. It is a lot to process. But, I mean, I don't think we're supposed to think about that. I think we're supposed to be like, it was a space capade, and it was so fun. I was going to say, I feel like, especially Peter, he's kind of a goofball. So I feel like they're kind of just hoping that, like,
that's the way people will interpret it. Him, like, processing his 2 dads' deaths. It just wasn't unnecessary. You could have definitely taken Yondu out, rewritten the story a little bit, and definitely taken the Ravagers out. I thought that the Sovereign Race was an interesting addition, and it's certainly, we see at the end with Aisha, their leader, that issue's about to go down.
Yeah.
Who she's called Adam. I kind of, when I heard that, it made me roll my eyes. I was like, why don't you just... I
guess that's
know.
like a character. Like, I have no idea. I mean,
Oh,
I looked it up afterward.
Yeah, okay, you don't read the comics, and then you don't know when you say stuff like that. You're probably offending so many people.
Well,
I never thought about that.
He's
probably a character in the comics.
Is. Okay, I just had a thought, though, about the dads thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably giving them too much credit, but what if they're bringing up all these dads issues because in the next one or in some future one, they're going to have this, Nebula and Gamora face off against their quote-unquote dad, Thanos. I mean, isn't that the whole thing with the Infinity War?
So it's like a going through everything
maybe
theme?
It's a theme. That is my working theory that I just came up with right now. Copyright, SJ.
Okay, so thanks for listening.
We're sorry if you liked it more than we did. Not really. Sorry,
We're not sorry
These
at
are
all.
our opinions. You didn't have to listen.
I mean, I'm not sorry anyway.
Well,
I didn't like it.
I feel like I didn't talk. I feel like I said mostly negative things. I mean, it's enjoyable. It's perfectly fun and funny. It just feels like all these little scenes that are fine on their own that I would like individual. Like, I would like it just as much if you cut up all the scenes and scrambled the order. It would be just as enjoyable.
I see. Okay. So I guess what I'm understanding, delete the Missouri accent. What I'm understanding is that my brain just stopped. Let me remember what I was going to say. My God. Right.
I said to scramble the order.
Mm-hmm.
Would you enjoy it just as much?
Cool.
That's how forgettable this movie is. The thoughts just went right out of her head.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks for listening. Next time we're going to review Everything, so expect that soon.
And I did read the book, so I will be comparing them.
I did not read the book, so only
good.
she
It'll
will
be a good
comparing
contrast.
them. Oh, I guess that's true. Bye!